This is Southern Cross News with Joe Palmer.
Good evening everyone and welcome to Southern Cross News. A week of scandal peaked for the government today with a motion of no confidence aimed at the Premier. It capped off a fiery day in Parliament dominated by fierce debate over taxpayers footing the legal bill for an embattled former minister.
Tensions boil over.
Premier, listen.
Fiery debate taking over the final Parliament sitting day of the year.
This is completely out of control.
For the third day in a row, scandal surrounding MP Adam Brooks dominated the opposition's relentless line of questioning. Late last night, the Premier revealed taxpayers were slugged $60,000 to cover his legal costs after he misinformed Parliament and the Premier. Today, multi-millionaire Mr Brooks promised to pay the money back.
Mr Brooks will pay all his legal costs incurred in relation to this matter. There will be no cost to the Tasmanian public.
The day went from bad to worse for our embattled Premier, narrowly surviving a no-confidence motion against his leadership.
The Premier is willing to accept dishonesty, deceit, complete cover-ups of what's happening, and that these individuals can remain in his government.
We don't have confidence in the Premier. He is a weak leader. He lets his ministers and his members get away with the most appalling behaviour.
This government is 100% committed, as am I. There is no way I'm leaving anytime soon while our state is going so well and has such a bright future ahead of it.
Despite a long-term promise from Rebel Speaker Sue Hickey to side with the government on such matters, all eyes were on her when the final vote was cast. But she stuck to her word, the Parliament voting to back the Premier.
Today, with Labor's stunt motions, we predictably saw this. It's pretty expected, to be honest with you, and Sue's been very clear about retaining confidence and supply for the government whenever this is called into question.
There's just a few hours left until the Parliament wraps up tonight, giving the government the summer off to regroup after a tough few months. Michelle Wisby, Southern Cross News.
Tasmania's emergency services are also stepping up to the line of duty to help their interstate colleagues. The Fire Service and Parks and Wildlife are deploying personnel to Queensland to help back up the bushfire response.
As Queensland faces what are being called unprecedented bushfire conditions, Tasmania's emergency services are stepping up to help. A contingent of 10 personnel heading off from Hobart, Launceston and Devonport today.
Well, you always think, gosh, they've got that catastrophe they're facing, that, and your heart goes out to them a bit. You always are, of course, concerned about the communities, and so any communities that we can help will want to.
They're providing incident management and also fire investigations and assessments in the wake of the blazes.
And that's very important post-fire, and that allows recovery to take place afterwards, and also cause and origin of fire, so where the fire started and how they actually started.
Another contingent of 42 firefighters will depart on Saturday to help form strike teams. Tasmanian authorities able to send help because of our recent rains.
It'll probably hold back our fire season till the new year, hopefully. So that delay in our fire season has really meant that we can release resources now to help our colleagues interstate.
Tasmanians are being urged to roll up their sleeves to help in a different way. The Red Cross says the Queensland fires and New South Wales storms have impacted the country's blood supply. Those states usually make up 52% of the nation's blood donations.
A lot of our donors who would normally donate in those states just can't because they've obviously got other things on their mind. So we're asking donors in other states, including Tasmania, to help out and come in and donate during this week and next.
If you've got the time and you've got the capacity, definitely come and get your blood donated. You know, I'm doing plasma, it takes an hour, but blood's literally, you can be in and out in half an hour.
An appeal has also been launched by Give It to help in the fire response. Michael Breen, Southern Cross News.
Social services are reporting a spread of rental affordability issues in Tasmania. A national index showing Hobart's affordability has declined by 12% in the last 2 years. In regional areas, average Tasmanian households are spending about a quarter of their income on rent.
Unaffordability, housing stress, rental stress is spreading out from Hobart, outer Hobart, now into other key urban areas. Especially Launceston is really starting to experience that difference now as well.
In other housing news, Domain is forecasting more moderate growth for Hobart house prices. It predicts annual rises of 2% for the next 2 years after a 12% hike this year. Tasmanian teachers weren't the only ones to strike this week, with students staging their own action today. A mass of pupils skipped out on school and took to Parliament lawns this afternoon. Their protest calling for urgent action on climate change, an issue they say their future depends on, but government isn't addressing. In response to the nationwide protests, the Prime Minister says he wants more learning and less activism in schools. One of Tasmania's most iconic tourist attractions is currently lacking a little colour, but the owners of Bristow Lavender estate say this year's late bloom is far from affecting business.
While this may not yet look like this, business at the estate is still blossoming.
We're predicting the best season we've ever had. We've spent a lot of time and energy in the off-season.
Every season is busier than the last, and it sounds silly, but we get really prepared for it, and it always takes us by surprise. So every year there are more people moving through the state, more people are coming to see the flowers.
Amongst those exploring the fields, an international film crew who wish to remain anonymous.
It's amazing to me always that somewhere in the northeast of Tasmania has this worldwide reach.
The international interest rapidly increasing, largely due to the influence of social media. But Instagram lovers looking for the perfect purple selfie today weren't in luck.
Some of them might be disappointed that there's not a lot of in-your-face purple at the moment.
Normally we'd be pretty much ready to go from a plant perspective, but we're late this year.
The late bloom attributed to the recent heavy rain, and while some interstaters admitted they were a little disappointed, others seemed to have other things on their mind.
Tad disappointing, but it's very easy to understand when it's in full bloom. It'd be a sea of purple.
It's not too bad. The missus really wanted to do it, so she enjoyed it, but I'd much rather be at the James Bogues Brewery on the tour.
It's still really beautiful around here. It's nice to get away from the city.
With warmer weather predicted next week, these 600,000 lavender plants are expected to be in full bloom by Christmas. But for now, the ice cream will have to do.
I thought it might have been an overpowering lavender taste, but it's not. It's quite subtle.
Yeah.
Quite delicious.
It was nice. Jessie Gilmore, Southern Cross News.
Former Tasmanian schoolgirl Courtney Barnett lit up the 2018 ARIA Awards stage in Sydney last night. Nominated in 6 categories, the 31-year-old, who now lives in Melbourne, took out Best Rock Album for Tell Me How You Really Feel.
She's performed on Ellen and Jimmy Kimmel, and tonight she makes her ARIA stage debut. Please welcome Best Rock winner, Courtney Barnett.
The popular St Helens form band Luca Brasi was also nominated in the same category. And the Wolf Brothers were nominated for Best Country Album but missed out on an award. Tasmanian triathlete Jake Birtwistle has capped off a stellar 2018 by beating out a world-class field to be crowned Tasmanian Athlete of the Year, while a Richmond great and a Commonwealth Games bronze medalist had their names immortalised in the state's Sporting Hall of Fame.
It was a 2018 full of accolades for the 23-year-old triathlete, silver and gold at the Commonwealth Games, along with podium finishes throughout the World Series. Birtwistle can now add Tasmanian Athlete of the Year to the list.
It won't be probably until maybe when I'm retired that I'll actually be able to appreciate it, because you spend so long trying to play it all down so you can be there and perform at your best.
Last night's achievement made even more impressive by the quality of finalists, including Amy Cure, Eddie Ockenden and Australian swimming's golden girl, Ariane Titmus.
Tasmanian sport of a whole this year has had an amazing year, so to be considered among these 6 others was a huge honour in itself.
Following a well-earned break, Birtwistle resumes competition next March for Triathlon's World Series. Earlier in the night, 2006 Commonwealth Games steeplechase bronze medalist Donna McFarlane joined an illustrious group inducted into the Tasmanian Sporting Hall of Fame.
It's a real privilege and an honour to be inducted
especially not just in the field of track and field, but to be included in a list of prominent and successful Tasmanians across other sports. I look forward to learning more about the members.
She was joined shortly after by 7-time leading Richmond goal kicker Michael Roach, who became one of the first Tasmanians to play 200 games at the highest level throughout the 70s and 80s, including the 1980 Tigers Premiership.
As a kid, growing up in Westbury, I just wanted to play footy. If I was good enough, I wanted to play one game of AFL, and when I played that one game, I'd achieved what I wanted, my dream.
Tom Cooper, Southern Cross News.
Tasmanian men are itching for the end of Movember, getting ready to shear off their charity moustaches. In a growing tradition for the final day of Movember, some men are shaving them down to a half-mast mow, an act to honour those who've died and stir conversations about men's health issues.
Movember is all about the conversations that get started, and having half a moustache will certainly create a few conversations.
This team, Rank Mows for Cam, has raised almost $20,000 over the last 5 years in honour of their mate Cameron Orr. The funds going towards mental health, suicide prevention and fighting prostate and testicular cancer. Now let's take a look at the day's business and finance news with thanks to Tasplan, your local super fund. The Australian share market burst out of the gates after a strong lead from Wall Street and held on to most of its gains by close, buoyed by the banking sector and mining stocks on higher commodity prices. The ASX 200 index has risen by 33.3 points. A short time ago, the Australian dollar was trading at 73 US cents and 82.85 Japanese yen.
The big partnership from Jordan Silk and George Bailey has the Tasmanian Tigers on track for a win during Day 3 of their Sheffield Shield clash with South Australia. The home side declared late this afternoon, with the Redbacks 1 for 16 at stumps a short time ago. Starting Day 3 on 49 runs, Jordan Silk helped to set the tone, notching up 50 on the very first delivery. The shock move to step down as captain recently to focus on his batting appeared a stroke of genius from George Bailey as the stalwart returned to form with a half-ton of his own. But celebrations were short-lived when Joe Mennie claimed the breakthrough. The side's new skipper kept things rolling before Silk brought up another Shield century to bring his teammates to their feet. Wade's innings was short-lived thanks to Nick Winter, Silk's stunning knock coming to an end shortly after on 113. It was the combination of a fresh and familiar face who steadied things, with Aussie Test captain Tim Payne stepping up and combining with Alex Pycroft as the new recruit belted the opening runs of his first-class career. The Tiger Cub had a few more boundaries left in him before Travis Head sent him packing on 29. The scalp of Jackson Bird prompting the Tigers to declare with a mammoth lead of 402 runs. And the Quick didn't have to wait long for his revenge, dismissing Jake Weatherold on a duck in the very first over. After signing former VFL player Jared Drew, the Kingborough Tigers have added one more recruit to the list for the 2019 TSL season, with key forward Michael Paul joining the club. Paul was one of the SFL's leading goal kickers this year, helping the Huonville Lions secure a grand final berth against Lindisfarne. Cycling superstar Richie Porte will compete in Australia's oldest stage race for the first time in 8 years, with the Tasmanian set to line up for the 66th edition of the Jayco Herald Sun Tour. Porte will be out for redemption next year following an up-and-down 2018, which saw him crash out of the Tour de France. Before competing in the Jayco Herald Sun Tour, Porte will begin his 2019 season for new team Trek Segafredo at the Tour Down Under, beginning on January 15. What started as a way to encourage exercise has become an action-packed event for thousands of Tasmanians. Today's Northern Schools Triathlon attracted a record number of entrants, swimming, riding and running around Devonport Bluff.
Braving the Bluff's bitter breaks. These young athletes are part of a record-breaking contingent of young competitors.
The numbers have grown every single year. Across 11 years, there hasn't been a year where there's been less.
Around 6,000 young Tasmanians will swim, ride and run in the triathlons, which are being held here in Devonport and in Hobart next week. Numbers have more than tripled since the event began 11 years ago. What started as an idea to inspire exercise has become a highly popular event on the school calendar, even if it is a little more straining than sitting at a desk.
How'd you find that?
Good.
Tell us about the ride.
Oh, it was exhausting.
Today hasn't been about winners and losers, just making it to the end of the three-part test is the goal.
I'm feeling good, that was fun.
You don't have to be a world beater, but you can be a world champion in terms of getting into physical activity.
The Hobart event will be held next Wednesday and Thursday after being rescheduled due to bad weather. Those taking part in the chilly swim leg at Bell Reeve Beach will be wise to take the same approach as those at Devonport Bluff.
Just get in, get out as fast as I can.
Tom Johnson, Southern Cross News.
Good evening. Light winds across the state today and inland showers over the north. Temperatures close to or above average. Ouse and Bushy Park, our top, 24 degrees. Hobart 20, Launceston 21, Burnie 19 today and Devonport 18. Friendly Beaches and Strawn reach 20, Flinders Island 19, St Helens 18, King Island and Low Head 17 degrees. No big falls of rain today as drizzle patches fell mainly over the north from the convective cloud over the state. Onshore winds brought patchy cloud to southern Victoria. More is spiralling around the low over the Tasman Sea, and there's even more over the New South Wales coast blowing in. Cloud with the front moves over the Bight too. Tomorrow the cold front looms as a weak high lies over northeast South Australia. A low is over central WA. West to northwesterly winds up to 25 knots. They'll shift southwesterly later at 10 to 20 knots and swells to 3 metres in western and southern waters. Strong wind warning for waters between Southeast Cape and Low Rocky Point. Reaching the end of the working week for many and a shower or two for Hobart and 20 degrees, 21 for Huonville and Campania with a few showers. Launceston's forecast, partly cloudy, 12 overnight, 21 the top, 20 the high for Devonport and Georgetown with a bit of wind picking up over the far north. Partly cloudy for Burnie and 20, 18 the top for Strawn with showers developing, partly cloudy and 21 for Wynyard. St Helens mostly sunny though and 22 degrees, a shower developing later for Swansea, 21 the top and 18 for Port Arthur. UV very high again at 9 and 10. To the weekend, and mainly fine until showers develop over the west in the afternoon. Showers easing on Sunday before contracting to the west and Bass Strait. Showers on Monday pushing back to the west and far south by evening. Strong and gusty northwesterly winds. Further north and sunny weather for Perth, Adelaide and Melbourne, partly cloudy in Canberra and Sydney, mostly sunny in Brisbane, but a shower and storm for Darwin. Little showery over the south, Hobart 17 degrees, in the north a bit warmer, 21 in Launceston, Devonport mostly sunny and 20 degrees. Big shout out to Scottsdale High students, Joe. I was there today, encouraged them not to be a weather person.
Yes, well, good point. Hope they listen. Thanks very much for that, Murph. That's all from the team. Have a lovely evening. We'll see you a little later.